Yesterday I got myself an HC-05 Bluetooth module. I wanted to see if I could use a cell phone, a mobile phone, as a remote control for various electrical devices instead of a garage door opener, for example. So I went ahead and got one of these, and then I scoured the internet looking for ways how to accomplish this. You can use HC-05 with pretty much any microcontroller with UART capability. I'm using it with an Arduino Uno, but the two devices operate at different TTL signal levels. The Arduino runs on 5 volts, whereas the HC-05 runs on 3.3 volts. So just in order to be on the safe side, I'm using a simple voltage divider to attenuate the signal level from the Arduino TX pin. The resistance ratio between the two resistors in the voltage divider should roughly be 2 to 1. On the Arduino side of things, I've put together a simple sketch that does just two things. It listens to the serial port, and when it receives an input on the serial port, it checks to see if that byte that is received, if the decimal value of that byte is 48, which is the ASCII code for character 0. If it is, then the sketch sends back to the serial port the entire alphabet, ASCII codes 65 through 90. That's all it does. If you would like to change the default settings on the HC-05 board, you can hold the little button on the breakout board while powering up, and that'll let you enter the AT commands. I'll just keep the default settings. So let's see in the serial monitor what this sketch does. If I enter any value in the serial port, nothing will happen, but if I enter a 0, I will get back the whole alphabet. Now we get to the fun part, programming the telephone. In Android Studio, I've created a new project using an empty activity template, but the focus of this project is going to be on Bluetooth communication. So for simplicity purposes, I'm just going to ignore the graphical user interface, and I'm going to ignore any of the multi-threading aspects of the application, and I'm just going to cram the entire program inside the onCreate method of the MainActivity class. But before we can do anything with Bluetooth, we need to give our application permission to access the Bluetooth facilities of our mobile phone. So this is how we do it. Next, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to tell my application to use the default Bluetooth adapter that's built into my mobile telephone. So to that end, I'm going to create a Bluetooth adapter object. I'll call it BT adapter, and it'll be Bluetooth adapter dot get default adapter. Okay, then I've already paired my mobile telephone with the HC-05. So the two HC-05 should show up in the bonded devices list. Let's take a look at that. Print line. We want to see bt adapter dot get bonded devices. Okay, save that and let's run it. Run the application. Here's my Android device, HTC Desire. I've skipped ahead over the compilation process and let's take a look at the console output. We can see that the mobile telephone has identified two bonded devices. I happen to know that the first one, these are the MAC addresses of the paired devices. The first one is my desktop computer, and the second one is the HC-05 Bluetooth adapter for the microcontroller. So I'm going to copy this MAC address, stop the application from running, of course, and then I'm going to create an object for this Bluetooth device for the HC-05. It's going to be of the Bluetooth device type. Let's call it HC-05, and it's going to be equal to the BT adapter dot get remote device. Then I'm going to paste the MAC address for this device. It's going to be a string, so I'll put the quotation marks around it. And then in order to verify that this is the correct correct device that we've selected, I'm just going to print its name to the console output. So system out print line HC-05.getName. Okay, and let's save and run that. Once again, I've skipped over the compilation process, and let's take a look at the console output window. Here we can see that indeed the selected device is the HC-05 Bluetooth serial board. Let's stop the application from running. And now that we have objects created for both the Bluetooth adapter in our mobile telephone and the remote Bluetooth serial board, we need to create a socket for communication between these two devices. This we will do in the following manner. Bluetooth socket let's call it BT socket is equal to HC create RF socket, and you can pick either insecure or secure, either way. And now we need the universally unique identifier. I've looked it up on the internet and found that for the Bluetooth serial boards, the universally unique identifier is as follows. This is the number that's used for all Bluetooth serial boards. So just copy and paste and hard code this number into the application. Create a variable called mUUID, and that's the identifier that we're going to specify here in the socket initialization. Okay, and then just to make sure that the socket has indeed been created, let's print it out to the console window. The socket. Okay, again, let's save and run this. And here I get an error message. I guess I should have imported the UUID class, so let's try alternate enter. Did it take care of it? Let's save it and run it again. And I get another error message. The create RFCOMSocket method is throwable, so I need to surround it with a try and catch exception handler. Let's do that. Surround with try and catch. Save that and run again. We are making good progress here. Let's take a look at the console window once again, and we see that we have created a socket for communication between the telephone and the HC-05 board. Let's stop the application from running. I should mention that the SPP board, the HC-05, is the server and the mobile telephone is the client. Now that we've established a socket for communication, we are going to want, let's just copy or cut this and put it up in the inside the try and catch handler. Now that we've established a socket for communication, we are going to want to connect to our to the HC-05 server. So let's do that. Let's call the bt socket dot connect method, and then we're going to want to take a look and see, make sure that we have established a connection. Is connected, and also upon execution of full execution of our code, we're going to want to close this connection. So let's call the close method. That needs to be, it's a throwable method, so it needs to be surrounded by a try and catch handler. And once we close the socket, we want to be able to see that in the console. So let's save all this and run it one more time. Again, I've skipped over the compilation process. Let's see if we have successfully managed to establish a connection between the mobile phone client and the HC-05 server. Here's our console window output. If we scroll up, we can see that no, unfortunately we haven't been able to successfully connect to the HC-05 board, and we get this message that the service discovery has failed. When this happens, let's stop the application from running. What we want to do is have our application try to connect again, and maybe again and again, maybe a couple of times, 3 times, until we manage until we do manage to establish connection. So let's make a loop that will perform this for us. Bluetooth socket is null. Okay, here we're gonna want to start a do loop and do all this. While the socket is BT socket is connected, or rather is not connected. And we may want to do this, let's do it 3 times. So let's set up a counter, integer counter is equal to 0. Then here we're going to make a logic AND clause. Counter is less than 3 attempts, and here we're going to increment the counter plus. Okay, so that'll give us 3 attempts to connect every time we run the application. That should increase our chances of successfully realizing the connection. So let's save this and let's run the application again. The compilation process is finished. Let's take a look at the console window once again. Well, what do you know? We have success. We have a connection between the mobile telephone and the HC-05 board. Well, now that we've managed to successfully establish a connection, let's do some communicating. Let's write and read some data back and forth between the microcontroller and the telephone. This here is our window between when the connection is started and ended. So here's where we're gonna want to do all the reading and writing to the Bluetooth and from the Bluetooth port. Just like with serial communication, we're gonna use streams. We're gonna use an output stream, to send data out. So let's create an output stream object. So bt BluetoothSocket dot get output stream. Okay. And if you recall from the sketch that we made for the Arduino microcontroller, the value that our sketch is expecting to receive in order to launch the print sequence was ASCII code number 48, which is the ASCII code for character 0. So let's send this code out to the Bluetooth port. Output stream dot write 48. Okay. Let's see, we're getting an error message. Surround with, try and catch. Okay, that's good. I'll just want to include the stream initialization statement in this try catch handler. Okay, so now we've sent a byte of value 48 decimal to the serial port, and when our microcontroller, when our Arduino receives this value, it's gonna it's going to send the whole alphabet back out to the serial port, and we're gonna want to receive that alphabet and all those characters, all those bytes, ASCII bytes, and print them out to the console window to confirm that indeed we have received all that data. So let's establish an input stream. Input stream, and we'll follow the same naming convention as above. bt socket get input stream. Okay, that's all good. And then we're going to want to flush the input stream buffer, just in case there's any data left in the buffer from before. So for that purpose, we're going to use the input stream dot skip method, and the length that we're gonna want to skip is everything that's available in the buffer. Okay, and then we're gonna want to create a for loop that will read integer I is equal to 0, that will read all of the 26 characters of the alphabet. So run from 0 to I is less than or 26 I plus plus. Okay, and here within this loop we're going to want to read a single byte of data from the input stream. Read. Okay, and let's cast. Okay, we'll surround it with try and catch later, but let's cast it to the byte type. And let's print it out to the console. Byte B, but we want to print it out as a character. Okay, that all looks good. Now we can create an exception handler, and all of this code, we're gonna want it to go inside the handler. Okay, let's save all that and let's run the application. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment of truth. Do we have success? Let's take a look. Hallelujah, we have our alphabet. Here it is. We get a printout of the alphabet, which verifies that we indeed have successfully established a connection, a two-way connection between our mobile telephone and an Arduino microcontroller board. Well, thank you for watching this brief video. I hope you've enjoyed it.